Good evening, friends. We are back here as promised on Sunday. It's 5 p.m. today now, and we are with very great friends on the show. Simone Singh, who's our guest for the day, and Lina Asher, of course, as always, there to rock the show. Brain energy frequency and consciousness will be discussed in detail between Simone, Lina, and myself. Before we get going, I would love to introduce our lovely guest. Simone made her acting debut with the television series Seahawks, followed by a role in Swabhiman in 1995. In fact, she played the title role in another popular television series called Hina, which gave her wide recognition and was the highest rated show on Indian television at that time. She has been praised for the role of Sakshi Goenka, a cunning and powerful woman in Ek Hasina Thi. She played roles in a few other movies and has been acclaimed for her role in Being Cyrus. She also played a small role in the blockbuster movie Kal Ho Na Ho. I'm sure that's a favorite movie for most of us. She's the first Indian TV actress to present at the International Emmy Awards in New York City, and she served on the jury of the first International Emmy Awards held in India in 2005.
So everyone, I only know Simone as a dear, dear friend. I don't know all the other avatars of her. But what I can tell you is she's one of the warmest, most generous, most loving human beings you can ever meet. Definitely one of the most emotionally and spiritually intelligent persons I've ever met, male or female. And over the years, our friendship has just gone from strength to strength. I had dinner with her last week and our lovely husband, Fahad. And I just had to look at Fahad and I said, Fahad, you've got a complete 360 package. I don't know anyone who's got looks, charm, humility, and can cook so well and sets a gorgeous table and makes everyone feel so warm and welcome. Simone, thank you very, very much for being with us today. I've been wanting to do this conversation with you for a very long time because every time I meet you and we have a discussion over dinner, I just learn so much. So
thank you so much. That was, what a wonderful way to have introduced me. Thank you. Nice to hear.
Well, it's all true. So, Simone, we've got a lot of people watching us. We call them our corroboree, our sacred gathering of people. And I really wanted, for them to have an opportunity to meet you because I think you're extra special. And I'd just like them to understand how, because we all take a first step, right, into the world of emotional understanding and spiritual understanding. So can you explain to our corroboree, what was the first moment you stepped into an understanding of the spiritual world, the world of energy, the world of alternate healing?
Sure, with pleasure. Thank you, Lina. And I would also like to add to that little, section about our friendship, that it's been an absolute delight to know you and get to know you better and better every time I see you. Because again, you're one of the most well-informed, most emotionally receptive and compassionate people that I know. So it's been a privilege. And yes, so getting on to answering your first question. So I had always had an interest in these subjects, but of course, when you're younger, you're busy with living life in different ways. And it was not one moment, but it was certainly one event in my life that had multiple effects on me that continue to propel my study and interest in various subjects till today. And that was the passing of my mother very suddenly, very unexpectedly. She was only 58. She was absolutely fine on very kind of very mild heart issues and was on medication. Here one day, gone the next, without preamble, without illness, without any of us being prepared or even knowing that this would happen. So obviously everyone in the family was blindsided. I wasn't the only one. It was a terrible shock. And but what happened with that, what happened with my mother's passing is, it was my first real understanding of loss and what it means. When my grandparents passed away, I was very young. So it was my first sense of loss, and it was devastating. I was blindsided, and I had no vocabulary to deal with this. I had no way of understanding and grappling with this. And I realized much later that what it did to me was it threw me into a classic existential crisis. You start to question the meaning of it is also meaningless. Is this all there is? This little puppet show, you come, you form attachments. If you're very blessed, as you and I are, as all of us in this room are, we have not known great deprivation or poverty. We have not known violence and war and horrible abuse. We don't suffer from those things, but as they say in Buddhism, everybody suffers. So you suffer loss, and so it threw me into an existential crisis where I started to question if there is intelligent design, and I do believe there is intelligent design. There is too much complexity and too much detail in every organic and inorganic thing in the universe for it to be completely random. So if there is intelligent design, and if there is a divine intelligence behind this intelligent design, there must be some intelligence attached to this mortal existence. And what is that? So from those, questions, those existential questions, came the search for identity, for true identity. Who am I underneath the personality? Our authentic self, our true authentic identity, which is ever present and ever perfect. So that is, who am I? The search for identity. The search for meaning. Why am I here? The search for purpose. Also, why am I here? So, these kind of questions. And it is actually, much later you realize these self-inquiry and asking the right kind of questions is by itself a form of spiritual study, because your own connection with the divine will start to give you clues and hints towards the answers and point you towards how you may be better able to access the answers. So that was the spiritual study part. And did you ask about anything else, alternate healing or something?
So have you found any answers along the way, or is it just a journey and a forever questioning process for you?
I think that through lifetimes, and certainly also in this lifetime, consciously and unconsciously, you accrue so much material, what are called samskaras and karma. And it's not just this lifetime, it's also not just your lifetime, it's also genetic memory, it's your parents, your ancestors, all of that. So certainly it is a journey, and which is not to say that there have been no answers. There have been great insights and there have been great moments of clarity during the journey, but it is a journey.
Okay.
Lovely. That's so awesome. So well said, Simone. I would like to ask you, Simone, what are some ways in which you see science catching up with spirituality?
There's an interesting question, because I think people forever have been trying to make friends of science and spirituality, and science was having none of it for the longest time. It was like, no, there's no room for all of this nonsense. Because the paradigm of science that existed for the longest time, which was the classical science, the mechanistic science, that model, that paradigm that existed for a long time had no room for spiritual concepts, which by their very nature are abstract and intangible and non-material. And mechanistic science was very much rooted in the material and the tangible and natural progression of things. That changed, of course, in the early 1900s, from 1905 to 1925, when quantum mechanics became the established paradigm of science, and that changed everything. It really opened up the conversation, whether there can be any connect between spirituality and science, because what it did was it allowed for an interconnectedness of everything, of matter. And that's something that spirituality has been, saying since forever, that everything and everyone in the universe, there is interconnectedness. We ourselves, each one of us, has come from source. We contain the divine spark, which is called the monad. And through lifetimes of journeying, because the monad, the divine spark in all of us, longs to be united with the source, which is the source of all being, and is connected to everything and runs through as that vein of interconnectedness through every sentient being. So through journeying through lifetimes, that is how the monad completes the journey back to source, the source of all being, from where everything emerges.
It's amazing, Simone, that the more I read, especially if I go back to history and read about indigenous people, whether in Australia or America, all of this seems to have been something that was known to them for years and years and years. And recently I've been reading about brainwave, how sound has been used as a way to shift mind and brain frequencies. So initially, when I started the reading, it was introduced to me as a digital drug. That brainwave entrainment is sort of like a digital drug, and I have been actually using brainwave entrainment, things like alpha mind control, getting into theta modes, and the science of brainwaves. Can you talk to us a little bit? Because I know you've read so much in this area. What is your understanding of the science of brainwaves, and how are they sort of measured in frequencies?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to your previous question because I don't think I answered it completely. You asked, AR, you asked, how is science catching up with spirituality in the area of neuroscience? And actually, before I do that, I just want to share something that is quite remarkable. So the great minds of, the founding fathers of quantum mechanics were great Vedantists themselves. And, Edwin Schrödinger, Niels Bohr, even Nikola Tesla, they were very, very interested in Vedanta, which of course espouses Advaita, which is non-duality. But to come back to the question, one of the ways in which science is catching up with spirituality is in the area of neuroscience, because in the area of neuroscience, great strides have been made in the past few years, barely a few years, barely decades, than have ever been made in thousands of years. So in the area of neuroscience, what is going on is amazing. The study of brainwave patterns, Lina, as you said, the study of brainwave patterns, a lot of discoveries have been made that certain brainwave frequencies are associated with expanded states of awareness, which people from spiritual traditions have been doing before these terms were coined. But they've been doing it. They've been accessing these expanded states of awareness and consciousness. And now there is science to back it up, to verify that this is actually happening, and these states correspond to certain brainwave frequencies. And of course, how a layperson could benefit from, earlier there were mystery schools and gurukuls where you went and learned and wisdom was passed on in very, very esoteric traditions. But now a layperson who has an interest and, starts to look will find ways of accessing these deep states. And that is where what you're talking about, brainwave entrainment, is one of the ways to do that. Does everyone know what brainwaves are? I mean, they're electrical.
If you can just share a little information on that.
So they are electrical signals through which neurons communicate with each other. That's what they are. And of course, they're measured using an EEG, which is a very commonplace thing, the electric encephalogram. So brainwaves are measured using the EEG. And when you said entrainment and going into alpha states and mind control, which is, Jose Silva's wonderful thing that he did was he made it very mainstream and available to so many people. So that what happens, what is brainwave entrainment is when you play two tones in both ears, and they're within a certain number of each other, I think up to 18. So supposing you're playing 110 here and 128 here, two different tones, the brain doesn't know which one to resonate with, so it lands in the middle, the difference between the two, which would be 10 hertz. So it lands at 10 hertz and starts to pulsate at that frequency, which is in the alpha range, as we will discuss later. As the one that you've been experimenting with, 10 hertz is in the alpha state. So when you do brainwave entrainment, your brain naturally starts to stay at these frequencies, and that's what happens in brainwave entrainment.
So, Simone, can you share examples of what kinds of activities are linked with each frequency?
Yes. So alpha, which is, I'll go through it in order of how they. There are brainwave frequencies that have yet to be researched very much, and there are some that have been researched, quite a lot. Let me start with the four main frequencies that any human being in their daily life would go through, just as a natural course of things, and that is the alpha state, which is very low. It's from 0.5 to 12. Is that right, Lina?
Yeah.
The 0.5 to up to 12. No, that's delta. Anyway, so the alpha states are quite low. Alpha, they are lower frequencies. When you first wake up in the morning, when you are not yet you're between sleeping and wakefulness. That state, there's a lot of serotonin activity going on, and a lot of serotonin being released in your brain. The world, and with all its troubles, has not landed on you yet. You're very chill. You're very chill. That's alpha. Then when you're in full waking consciousness and you're engaged with the world and you're going about actively living your life, engaging with your outside environment, you're doing problem solving, you're debating, all of those things, that very alert state, which is our normal waking state, you are in beta. And that is where you spend most of your time. And then when you're about to call it a day, your brainwave frequencies will descend from beta to alpha again, a relaxed state, and then briefly, not for a very long, into the theta state. Yes. The theta state is associated with REM sleep, rapid eye movement, which is associated with, of course, dreaming. And human beings dream in 90-minute cycles. So then you drop down into theta. You don't stay there very long, but REM sleep is very, very, very vital for our body, because it is where you process and you deal with emotions. That's where that happens. And then you drop into deep dreamless sleep, which is delta. And that's where you're in delta, which is dreamless. It is a very restorative sleep. Your body's energy levels are restored in that. Healing processes are activated. That is what delta is. There is, of course, a fourth one, which is gamma. Gamma is a very high frequency, actually, all the way from 40 to 100, and hypergamma is all the way overlapping with lambda in 100 to 200. I'm sorry, I'm being very technical, but in case people are interested. So I have to put my phone on silent.
So just to let everyone know, while Simone's putting her phone on silent, the journal has all of this information in detail for you. Simone, you had a look at the journal, right? Simone helped us design the journal. She sent us the information. We've put a beautiful journal together. It's got all the information that Simone's explaining, because we actually want you to immerse yourself in the information, soak it in, and practice what's talking about today.
So I'm understanding so much of what Simone is saying purely because I've done the journal in the afternoon today. That's the advantage of being on the inside. The audience is going to get the journal after the show, but I've already got it. I did it in the afternoon. And I'm understanding exactly what Simone is saying, word to word, frequency to frequency.
So your voice is breaking up, Agnello, so I'm not entirely sure that, am I audible and clear?
Yes.
Yeah, you're clear. Go ahead.
Great. So let me just go through the gamma state, since we're talking about going through the brainwave frequencies. Gamma is found in deep meditators. It's a very high brainwave frequency associated with, moments of clarity, but it is not found very naturally in most people, long-term meditators, and it has been studied a lot in Buddhist monks. And it is found to be corresponding with metta bhavana, which is loving kindness towards all sentient beings. And then there are two that I'll touch upon very briefly. They're not very well researched, but people do have an interest in these things, and anyone who's listening, and if they have, they can research it, are lambda and lambda frequency and epsilon. Epsilon was discovered by Dr. Jeffrey Thompson. It is amazing. Lambda is very high, epsilon is very low. Nobody has these frequencies on a regular basis. It is, people who have acquired siddhis and great yogic powers, or even great powers of physical ability, will be found to have this. But they are fascinating because they are at the two ends of the spectrum, very high and very low, and yet they tend to occur together. So that's the brainwave frequencies. What's next?
So science and spirituality is coming together in everything that you say. I just want people to understand that we do need to sort of go through all the frequencies. But what if how do we get brain balance? Example, I'm trying to ask you, how is
Lina, I'm having a little bit of a technical glitch. Your voice is scrambling very badly.
Lina's technology is a little on the challenging side. Can you hear me, Simone?
Yeah, the voice is scrambling a little. So both of you are scrambling.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please do.
Okay. So, Simone, brain wave imbalance is linked to emotional and neurophysical health. Can you explain how under arousal and over arousal can affect people?
Yeah, sure. The brain is of course comprised of many parts. I mean, there's the left hemisphere, the right hemisphere, the prefrontal cortex, the hypothalamus, all of those things. And they all have to function together. In states of under-arousal and over-arousal, both would result in challenges, maybe learning disabilities. If you're spending too much time, say in alpha, it is linked to depression. If you're spending too much time in theta, it is so. But it is all about balance, because if you're spending too much time in the lower frequencies, it will lead to lethargy and sluggishness and spaciness and tiredness, and not really being able to engage with your environment in a coherent way. So those are obviously states of under-arousal, and it could lead to learning disabilities and also certain mental illnesses. Over-arousal is when too many things are happening all at once. Your brain waves are not functioning again coherently. And what meditation does and mindfulness does. I know you had a lovely chat with Rageshwari last time. And even brainwave entrainment, what they do is they promote whole brain functioning. So over-arousal and over-arousal, say in, high beta is associated with high stress. So beta is a wonderful state of alertness, which helps us to, communicate with our external environment. It's wonderful. Learning, immediate problem solvings, and being able to be quick-witted and funny, all of those things. So it's a great, it's very wonderful as well. But beta gets a bad rap because in high beta, in the higher frequencies of that bandwidth of beta, those are associated with stress and anxiety and paranoia. Obviously, those are not states that are very comfortable to be in, and would also lead to, issues of mental illness. The wonderful thing is that when I think Gerald Oster in the 70s discovered brainwave entrainment, they also found that something called hemispheric synchronicity occurs. Hemisphere synchronization. And that, when they studied it later, hemisphere synchronization that occurs with certain kinds of brainwave entrainment were found to be very useful in treating people with ADHD and ADD. And the interesting thing is that ADD and ADHD are, hyper linked with hyperactivity. They also found that theta activity is where, if you're spending too much time in theta, which is otherwise marvelous, again, great for learning, reprogramming. It's wonderful for creative visualization, so for manifestation, people who are interested in that sort of thing. But if you spend too much time in the theta frequencies, as a reflex to that, you start having to be hyperactive just to get into beta and be normally functional. So it's interesting. It's really all about balance and promoting balance, and meditation, mindfulness, brainwave entrainment. All of these tools are very helpful with those.
But it's interesting, Simone, a lot of special educators and doctors are actually looking at sound and brainwave frequencies to help kids with ADHD or, all the learning disorders, rather than go to Ritalin or anything, any of those kind of drugs. They're actually looking at sound and brainwave to help bring kids into a state of resonance with the world around them. So.
Yes, they certainly are. Yeah, and a lot has been discovered, and this is again what a marvelous thing that neuroscience is studying these things, and also understanding non-pharmaceutical ways of helping people who suffer from these. Yeah.
So, Simone, people use chemical interventions or recreational drugs to alter brain function. Can you explain what are the other ways to do that?
Certainly. The chemical interventions actually are not new. The shamanistic traditions, and a lot of them have been using those psychoactive drugs. There's ayahuasca, there's mushrooms, the wonderful work of Carlos Castaneda, Timothy Leary and his LSD dropping crew. In the 60s, psychologists used to prescribe LSD to their patients for experiences of expansion and expanded awareness. But currently, it's a very dangerous thing, this party drugs. Lina, I remember you were asking me about it a while ago. Party drugs, what they do is they give you a serotonin bomb. And that must be marvelous. But what happens when you come down from that? And you're doing this repeatedly, and the body's ability to regenerate without nutritional support or medical intervention is not infinite. I mean, you do have to allow it time to regenerate. So people who are doing this on frequently, then they crash and they suffer from serotonin depletion, which is not fun. I mean, there's raginess, there's suspicion and paranoia. Those are not fun states of being. So yeah, best to let music and dance. Dance will also put you in altered states. Music will put you in altered states, as we've learned from Tibetan sound bowls, sound baths, which is basically psychoactive, sounds. It's a mishmash of different frequencies, which puts you in this amazing state. Dance, Sufi whirling will put you in a very hypnotic state. So maybe those are better ways to have fun rather than party drugs. Some of the other ways, as I've mentioned, are brainwave entrainment is a very powerful one. People who do Sufi whirling are in extremely deep meditative states where they feel a great connection with the divine, which only comes with expanded states of consciousness. Tibetan singing bowls will put you in a lovely, very relaxed state, and sound baths, which is psychoactive music. So they'll play many, many instruments which are at different frequencies. And have you ever experienced a sound bath? It is quite marvelous. So those are the different ways that you can also access altered states and access brain waves. There's also neurofeedback and biofeedback, which when you're hooked onto the EEG machine, you teach yourself, as opposed to the brainwave entrainment doing it for you. You teach yourself through a system of rewards and an understanding of how it works, certain breathing techniques or certain mental processes of creative visualization will take you into the lower frequencies. So you can teach yourself. And once you are even off the machine, even in your daily life, when you're finding yourself hyper agitated, you can use those same mechanisms, those same mental tactics to access more relaxed states where you are more functional and productive. So those are the different ways you can.
So for our corroboree, some of the resources for brainwave entrainment are there in the journal. The only thing we ask all of our corroboree to do is to make sure if you have anything such as epilepsy, that you don't use brainwave entrainment unless you check with your doctor, and please do not use it for your children unless a doctor says it's okay to. So Simone, the last MoonShot conversation we had, we spoke about children mostly being in the theta state, right? And therefore, that everything that they hear and that they experience when they're in the theta state, it largely gets downloaded in the subconscious. So the theta state is when, as you said, you're vulnerable and you've got an open access. What are the subways in which we could sort of, if we've been programmed for fear, or we've been programmed for certain amounts of pain when we've been young, because we've just, without filters, absorbed things in our theta state, could we access and reprogram anything that's unhelpful that we downloaded?
Yes, I mean, for sure. Again, in these areas, there is so much open communication and so much information is available to people who want to access it. Yes, there are, of course, I mean, EFT, which is Emotional Freedom Technique, which is a system of tapping through certain, acupressure points. That is very powerful. It's found to be very, very powerful. Earlier, so there's also certain kinds of breath work. There's certain yogic kriyas, healing modalities that will help you. So holotropic, and it also will put you in altered states of consciousness, certain kinds of breath work like Sudarshan Kriya, like holotropic breath work. Again, these, you need to learn them and you need to be guided. I would not advise, same as you were saying, people with mental conditions need to be very careful. Of course, this is a conversation. It is not medical advice. It's for people with curiosity to go and follow up, should they, with caution. So EFT is a very, very powerful tool. Holotropic breath work, Sudarshan Kriya or other breathing Kriyas. Hypnosis is very, very, very powerful. self-hypnosis or going to a hypnotherapist. Those are very powerful tools that you can use to reprogram. There are other modalities which are maybe easier to access, like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And there are just exercises. If you don't have access to any of these, it takes work, but anything worth doing takes practice and takes intention and takes discipline. It does take work, and you have to practice it for it to have real results. But just practices so the brain is running on autopilot. Our programs are running us, and our subconscious is running us. People think, my conscious mind is how I'm engaging and how I deal and how I respond with to situations. Our subconscious mind is running us. So it just runs on autopilot. So if you've been told forever, supposing a thought occurs to you, and it occurs to you quite often because you've been told it's a program that's running in you. Oh God, why am I so lazy? I should have finished that. Just stop. Say stop. And say, well, hold on a second. Is that actually true? And can I think of 3 occasions or 3 times when that was not true? Can I think of 3 times when I was not lazy? And believe me, you will find a minimum of 3, you will find many more. So every time some sort of negative pattern that has been ingrained in you, that has been drilled in you, because children are not born that way, as you said, that has been ingrained, you stop and question it. And there is a science to it. It's not just, what it does is, it stops that pattern, right? Because then the brain has to process this new information. So the pattern is broken because the brain now has to process this new information. Like, it's asking, the person is asking a question, like it's asking a question, now it's looking for answers. So it breaks that pattern. And the more often you do it, the more that pattern gets broken and stays broken. And of course, you can teach yourself a new thing. You can transplant a new idea, saying, well, if 3 times I wasn't, and the next time it occurs to you, you can think of 3 different reasons, 3 different occasions, times when you were not lazy. Well, if there have been these many times, I'm obviously not lazy. I just like to work smart. I work smart. Whatever works for you as a quick cue, so you can transplant new ideas. So there are many ways. It doesn't always require technology. It doesn't always require study. It does require paying attention, paying intention as well.
So Simone, can you,
For entire corroboree, while we do not want you experimenting with brainwave entrainment or anything else without getting an okay from your medical doctor that you don't have any of the states of mind that would not benefit from it, EFT is a non-invasive technique that everyone can practice without checking with anyone. Simone and I have a common, very dear friend, a cancer someone who's just gone through cancer treatment and had cancer surgery and had not slept for 4 days with intense pain. And I actually sent an EFT therapist to him. And, that's the first time he was open to it. He experimented with it and he slept with no pain at all. So something that seems so impossible, such as EFT, you think that tapping can't do very much, actually just, gave him immense amounts of pain relief that night. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, EFT and the marvelous thing about it, and there are free tutorials, you don't have to look very far to learn it. It is effective in acute states. Like if I'm feeling, say, claustrophobic right now, it will work on that. And if you choose to, it will also take you back to traumas that you weren't even there and help you integrate those or release those. Yeah. So, it works both on an acute state and on very deep-seated states of discomfort and unease as well.
Yeah. So, Simone, can you talk about hypnosis as a way of accessing and reprogramming the subconscious?
Yeah, hypnosis is such a marvelous tool because, when you go into hypnosis, they would take you into receptive states and very pliable states. And also, probably, I remember you inquiring earlier, Lina, in our private conversation, that what might those states be? Theta and delta, the borders between theta and delta. When they take you either through brainwave entrainment, which is also used in hypnosis, or just through talking you down and hypnotizing you, when they take you to those states, theta is the seat of our, it's the gateway to our emotions. That's where you can and memories. It's the gateway to our emotions and stored memories and repressed emotions. Whatever has been unprocessed, you repress them because you can't be acting out on those every single day consciously. Although we do, the subconscious, you do it, but in a completely unconscious way. So it takes you down to where you have either access to those repressed memories and experiences, which you may not consciously remember. Sometimes you do consciously remember, but you can't go back to the past and fix it, right? Because the past is done. But it takes you down to that state and helps you to integrate it because you're in a receptive state. And if it is not a conscious memory or a conscious issue that you're dealing with, if it is buried in your unconscious or subconscious, it may emerge as a state, as a memory. It may emerge as a memory or a traumatic event or an event that suddenly gives you an aha moment that, wait, I tend to respond in this way to certain things because this is what I heard, or this is what was going on in my household, all the time. So I don't even know that I'm doing it, but it is a learned procedure. So you, in the theta and delta states in hypnosis, it gives you access to repressed emotions and repressed memories. And also then if you're working with a hypnotherapist, or you can use self-hypnosis, which is, there are many programs you can download, and use self-hypnosis, then to reprogram those programs that are not serving you well, to reprogram it and, plant a new idea, like in the movie Inception.
So we're running out of time, but before we go, can you quickly talk to our corroboree about Bach flower remedy?
Yeah, Bach flower remedies are also such a powerful tool. And I think along with EFT, Bach flower therapy, which was discovered by Dr. Edward Batch, it's a very small contained repertory of 38 remedies. So it's not endless like homeopathy, which can be confusing. It's a very tight repertory of 38. But if you choose to, it will address, all of the things that arise in the human condition, whatever ails us, whatever we suffer from, in terms of mental issues and emotional issues. Bach flowers, currently, I think, is such a valuable tool. We're living through extraordinary times. We're living through really extraordinary times. There are changes that are going on at a macro level, at a world level, at a massive level of government and politics, and world economies are shifting. People are no longer willing to give their power to authorities that earlier, had taken their power. And, so there's seismic changes going on in the world. You just have to look to see that this is happening. And if it's going on at a macro level, it's going on at a micro level. So to help you through these times, and also because of COVID, our world has become so small. Our world has become contained to 4 walls. There is no longer the escape of going out and hanging out with your buddies and having a drink in a bar and coming back and saying, oh, well, thank God I got away from this situation, whether it is work, whether it is relationships. You don't have that escape anymore. And you don't want to live in an unpleasant atmosphere. Nobody does. But it becomes unpleasant because people are being inconsiderate. Maybe you are, everybody is contributing in some way to either good things or bad things or both. So to help you just not maybe become resentful, to help you see another person's point of view, to help you be compassionate, and to also just help you process all of this stuff that is suddenly so very different. Bach flowers is a marvelous tool. Again, there are many resources online that the corroboree will find.
Lovely, Simone. So let me ask you the last question before we can conclude this wonderfully interesting and very insightful session, Simone. Can you speak on anything that you have learned so far that will help people to manage this pandemic?
Yes. I also, people have decided a while ago that they're going to use this pandemic to learn, to upgrade their professional skills. You can also use it to upgrade your life skills because that's always useful. And navigating the pandemic, there is so much fear, there is so much anxiety because there seems to be very little real information out there. People look for, like, can someone tell me what this is? How can I go about being safe? There's different information every day. There's so much misinformation. This disease and this pandemic is playing out in real time. The information changes every day. The authorities have not exactly anywhere in the world been, well, maybe some places better than others, been very good about dealing with it and giving people information that provides them solace. People need comfort. And it's hard also because of the new rules in place. Lockdown, escapism is at a minimum. People are watching too much TV. Whatever is happening. So to allow yourself, maybe it's hard. People are working from home 12 and 14 hours a day. But as a gift to yourself, maybe give yourself just 15 minutes a day to practice something, mindfulness, meditation, Bach therapy, EFT, because it will be a great gift to you and it will provide you the comfort that you're seeking. We're all looking for comfort and someone to take care of us. There's nothing. Where is your safety net? There is no safety net. So you can be your own safety net. And it doesn't mean 15 minutes a day won't work. Small doses incrementally have a cumulative effect. So, if we look at this time as, because it is what it is. You can rail and rant at it, but why is it the way it is? Or you can just say, well, maybe I can utilize this time and deal with it better, navigate it better for me and my loved ones, and also maybe learn something new that I can then deploy in my life after this.
Wow, that was awesome, Simone. Awesome. I request Lina to do the conclusion of this show and announce the next Sunday's topic.
So everyone, Agnelorajesh and I will be in conversation next week, and it's a beautiful entry that Simone's given us. We're going to be talking about the power of sound. So we look forward to seeing you next Sunday. And then the Sunday after that, we've got a very exciting Buddhist singing nun, Ani Choing, who will take us into a real experience around the power of sound. So look forward to seeing you next Sunday at 5 o'clock. Please do download the journal. Everything Simone has spoken about, Simone has already given us information, and we've already put it in the journal, and it's all there for you. As Simone said, 15 minutes a day, do the work, and see the magic. So see you next Sunday, everyone.
Thank you. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lina. And audience, see you again next Sunday at same time, 5 p.m. Thank you so much.